أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كافها يا عين صاد ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا.
There have been only a few great people who have changed the intellectual history of the world. Allamah Muhammad Hussayn Tabataba'i was one of them.
Allamah Tabatabai is one of the people who had greatest contribution in changing the mind of scholars and ulama.
While Allamah added a great deal to Islamic philosophy, sociology, the commentary of the Quran and ethics, he also had lofty spiritual stations.
The people who are not very familiar with his ideas may think that he was not politically minded or informed.
His sociological ideas regarding the setup of an Islamic government and the system of wilayah were revolutionary.
He was famously known as Ustad, or the teacher.
In this episode of The Greats, we explore one of the most perfect human beings in every manner, the great Allamah Muhammad Hussayn Tabatabai. Allamah Muhammad Hussayn Tabatabai was born in Tabriz in the year 1904. His father earned his wage through agriculture and farming.
After losing his mother at the age of 5 and his father at the age of 9, the young Muhammad Hussayn would go under the care of a family servant and a maid. After his primary and secondary education, him and his brother would start learning French, as was the custom of the time.
After that, Agha Mirza Qazi, the mujtahid of the time and a caretaker of Allamah Tabatabai and his brother, removed both of them from school to enroll them in the Islamic seminary. During this time, Allamah says that he wasn't too fond of studying. He was finding it hard to develop interest in these studies and failed to comprehend much. One day his teacher told him, "If you don't want to study, there is no need for me to teach you." For Allamah, these words were hard to bear. So Allamah went into seclusion, prayed a 2-rakat namaz, and prayed God to give him love and affection towards studying. That would change everything for Allamah and the entire world. Allamah says, "Then divine favor suddenly reached me and changed me so that I grew excited over my studies and impatient to learn all there was to learn. I forgot all that is fair and foul in the world and saw the sweet and the bitter aspects of life as equal. I cut back from food, sleep, and life's other necessities to a bare minimum and devoted the rest of my time to studying. Everyone has tasted the sweet and bitter of this life in their own experience. In my turn, I have found myself in varied environments, faced with all kinds of vicissitudes. I always sensed, however, that an invisible hand has delivered me from every terrible danger, and a mysterious influence has guided me through 1,000 obstacles towards my goal. Though I be a thorn, and though there may be a flower to grace the meadow, I grow by the hand that nurtures me. In the year 1925, Allamah with his brother, wife and son made his way to Najaf for continuing their Islamic education. Under the guidance of some of the great Islamic scholars of that time, the likes of Ayatollah Sheikh Muhammad Hussayn Isfahani, Ayatollah Muhammad Hussayn Naini, Ayatollah Abul Hasan Isfahani and Sayyid Hussain Badkubai, Allamah found a new life.
Allamah's love for knowledge can be understood from the fact that he used to travel in the scorching heat of Najaf just to meet and learn from his mathematics teacher.
خاطرات علمی بود و فلسفی بود و ضمایم دیگری هم اینا داشتن که غیر از مسئله فلسفه ما فکر داشتیم و اصول داشتیم و در ریاضیات بهترین استاد را میتوان گفت در دنیا به نظرم بهترین استاد بود. ریاضیات خوندیم پیشش، در نجف تحصیل میکردیم.
Allamah's quest for knowledge and insight guided him to a person that would soon become one of the most significant person in Allamah's life, Ayatollah Ali Qazi Tabatabai. His teacher, his spiritual mentor, and his guardian, Qazi Tabatabai was a person of a divine position near God, and a number of Gnostics have been trained under him.
Allamah Qazi Tabatabai always told his students, never be satisfied with yourselves and always keep thinking about refining your souls. He also famously instructed Allamah to keep up the nightly prayers for the success of this life and the hereafter.
Allamah Tabatabai, the author of al-Mizan, he says, when I was studying in Najaf, I have a teacher, Sayyid Ali Qazi Tabatabai. I went to him when I was a student. I said to him, Sayyid, can you teach me an act that will give me tawfiq and success in dunya? He said, he looked at me and says, Alayka bi salat al-layl. Perform salat al-layl. He says, very well. Then I asked him, teach me something that will give me success in akhirah. He says, this great mystic looks at him and says, Alayka bi salat al-layl. You must perform salat al-layl.
The harsh living conditions of Najaf tested the patience of Allamah and his wife. His first son died at the age of 2, and then his second, and then the third, and the fourth one also went into the mercy of God. Maybe it was the patience of his wife during this time that made Allamah always repeat these sentences, that had it not been for the endurance of my wife, I don't know if I would have been able to continue studying in those conditions. Once during a regular visit by Allamah Qazi Tabatabai to the house of Allamah, he told his wife not to be upset because this time her child would live and his name would be Abdul Baqi.
In Iran, however, Raza Shah's oppressive government made it difficult for Iranian students to continue their education in Najaf due to a prohibition on financial transfers from or to Iran. During this time, Allamah had no choice but to sell all of his belongings in order to survive. These financial pressures made Allamah return to his birthplace, Tabriz.
ما نجف که مشرف شدیم 10 سال اونجا 10 سال خورده اونجا توقف داشتیم. بعد مراجعت به ایران کردیم، تبریز اونجا بودیم.
On returning, he took a brief time off his education and started replenishing his ancestors' abandoned lands and farms.
اونجا فلسفه رشدی را که در سایر جاها مخصوصا در تهران بود این رشد را نداشت و از این جهت من علاقه‌مند بودم که به هر ترتیب خودمون را به قم برسونیم که در شروع به حساب کماله.
In the year 1945, the journey of Allamah directed him to the blessed city of Qom. This was also a time of ideological reshaping of Iran by the socialist and Marxist tendencies. These secularistic inclinations were becoming more and more popular amongst the thinkers, writers, army generals, and even the layman working class in Iran. This was also being fueled by a number of propagandas directed at the general public of Iran. The issue of religion was being brought up in every sphere of life.
With the seminary environment of Qom merely focused on the principles of jurisprudence at that time, there was an utter lack of Islamic response to the questions being raised by these groups. Allama, based on his philosophical inclinations, became one of the flag bearers who directed the attention of the seminary and the public towards socio-political interpretations of a deeper understanding of Islam.
جایی که فلسفه رو معمولاً بحث درباره مسائل انتزاعی و کلی میدونن، ما چه انتظاری از فلسفه برای حل مشکلات و مسائل اجتماعی میتونیم داشته باشیم؟
از فلسفه به معنای خاص خودش نمیتوانیم توقع را داشت. اونی که داره اینه که انسان را به سوی کمال دعوت میکنه و کمالی که اسلام در نهاد خودش داره، این کمالی است که دنیا را تأمین میکنه و اشخاص را تربیت میکنه و با تربیتش پیشرفت عمومی انسان را تأمین میکنه. اونی که میفهمیم اینه.
While he could have written a book on jurisprudence and become a popular marja, Allama chose the harder way. He sought to fulfill the needs of his time. Lack of interest in interpretation of the Quran was one such need. Widespreading wrong ideologies and lack of intellectual defense against them was another.
However, Allama understood the immense ocean of meanings of infinite depth that lay beneath the apparent text of the Holy Quran, and so he strived hard to bring those jewels of understanding of God's words. It was not going to be an easy task, but Allama dedicated his life to it.
اما از حیث مدتی که این کتاب منو معطل کرده، یعنی مشغول کرده بود، از حیث مدت مشغول بودیم. 20 سال در طول کشیده تا این تفسیر 20 جلدی تمام شده.
روشتون استاد؟
روش ما همین تفسیر قرآن به قرآن. توضیحش همینه دیگه. قرآن کریم کتابی است آسمانی و خصوصیات حقیقی و واقعیت این کتاب، عرض کنم، مطالب خودش از خودش حل می شود. یعنی هر مطلبی از مطالب قرآن را پیش بگیریم، با دقت ملاحظه بشه، یه آیه دیگری این آیه را تفسیر میکنه و توضیح میده و ما به همین ترتیب از اول گرفته تا آخر قرآن ترتیب ما اینه.
Another challenge during that time was that the materialistic tendencies had become widespread, and what was needed to counter it was intellectual and philosophical discussions.
In response, an organization made up of elite members of the Hawza was formed. They approached and requested Allama to write an article in answer to the view of the materialists. Instead of Allama writing the article himself, he actually did something that had much more lasting effects. He prepared a list of topics and requested all members of the organization to write articles. 2 members of the organization, Shaykh Mutahiri and Shaykh Quddusi, were the ones who prepared a paper on the topic, The Communal Life of Ants and Birds. Imam Musa Sadr and a few others wrote a paper on the Quranic perspective on patience and perseverance, which was a topic under scrutiny by the leftist groups. Sections of these articles were published, and in this manner, Allama brought Farsi texts into the Hawza.
Allama's way of dealing with these problems was through spirituality, philosophy, and realism. Allama's perfection of the concept of Burhan-e-Siddiqeen, or the argument of the truthful, was an innovative new step in philosophy. His argument allows you to accept the necessity of God only by accepting that there is a reality. Allamah did not see society as just an artificial collection of individuals. Rather, he saw society as a unit having a real existence, and the way an individual is responsible for constructing a society, the society too, in return, has an effective hand in shaping an individual's life. Allamah's sociological perspective preceded the upcoming development in Islamic sociology.
Allamah Tabatabai, in his al-Mizan, in many places he refers to the social aspect of Islam. What I am going to refer to you is mostly from volume 4 of al-Mizan, when he comments on the verse 200 of Surah Al-Imran. He says that no religion and no school of thought has emphasized on society like Islam. Islam has made its main and most important rulings on the basis of society and social life. Then how did Islam plan for implementation of these rules and regulations? This is very important. مضافا إلى قوى الحكومة الإسلامية الحافظة لشعائر الدين العامة وحدودها. The first thing he mentions is Islamic government. Islamic government is expected to safeguard general instructions of religion. Islamic government is the government that is responsible for making sure that general framework is according to Islamic Sharia, the general framework. Islamic government is not the government that interferes in people's personal life. It's not, interfering in the details, but to make sure that the general framework, the general atmosphere is according to the Islamic Sharia. And second, ومضافا إلى فريضة الدعوة إلى الخير والأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر العامة لجميع الأمة. The second mechanism in Islam, in addition to thinking and planning for Islamic government, is to ask everyone to feel responsible to invite others towards good and prohibit the evil. The next thing is this, that Islam has made it clear for its followers that the whole point in having an Islamic society, which is very important, because why do you want to have a society? Why do you want to have a community? Why do you want to have a nation? You must have a purpose, because the purpose, the end, is what forms a community. Allamah Tabatabai is very clear, he discusses this, that communities are formed and shaped based on a purpose which is common, an end which is common. According to Islam, the end is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
These, along with other numerous philosophical innovations, helped not only lay the foundation of Islamic philosophy in the Hausa, but also paced it forwards many folds. A contemporary of Allamah Tabatabai, the French philosopher and theologian Professor Henry Corbin, owed a great deal of his ideological development to Allamah. Professor Corbin was an inquisitive French university student from Sorbonne University of Paris. According to Allamah Tabatabai, he was a simple-hearted and just man who believed that among all religions of the world, it was only Shi'ism that was a mobile and live sect. All other religious sects had completed their lifespan and no longer allowed for their followers to have expectation and attain greater stages of perfection. Professor Corbin's relation with Allamah began in the year 1968 and continued for 20 years. Corbin saw Allamah's precise vision and sharp-sightedness as potentially powerful and influential in the West and in Europe, and therefore carried out interviews with him. His goal was that the voice of Islam and Shi'ism should reach the ears of the part of the world so that they may also become aware of this knowledge that was necessary for the soul's growth. Eventually, these interviews were published in 4 languages, Farsi, Arabic, French, and English, and compiled in a book by the name Shi'a or Shia Islam.
It is obvious that Allamah really did rise to the call of his time. With his mind and his pen open to answer all the intellectual challenges of his time, with his profound intellectual capacity and a deep insight about Islam, he really did live and prove that Islam is a universal religion and is meant for any time, any place, and is meant to answer all questions of humanity.
Within a long list of people that Allamah directly influenced are Professor Hussain Nasr, Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, and of course the great Ayatollah Shahid Mutahhiri. Some of his notable works that have been translated into English language include Quran dar Islam or Quran in Islam, Return to Being, which is a book on Irfan or spirituality, Spirituality of Shi'ism and Other Discourses, which is a collection of articles that Allamah published over time, and of course the famous Shia Islam, which is a good global introduction of the religion of Shi'ism.
Allamah was a person who acted upon his knowledge. His impeccable morality made him a light that shone upon anyone who had spent any small time with him. Many great people have divine memories with him.
Allamah Tabatabai, a youth, writes to him. He says, Sayyid, tell me, what should I be doing to make spiritual progress? And at that moment, one of the things which he writes, he says that if every night you were to sit down, even if it's for 5 minutes, and you were to introspect on your day, what would happen is that after 40 days, you'll see spiritual perfection. You would be taken towards Allah. You would make progression towards Allah. Your pathway would open up, and you would see the haqaiq al-ashya. But it takes a person to do what? To critically sit down and to say to themselves, listen, I'm not perfect. Let me sit down and analyze myself. Let me see where I'm making a mistake. Why don't we do that on a daily basis, and you'll see progression.
Allamah's personality was a unison between philosophy and science on one side and love and art on the other. Apart from being a great intellectual, academician, and a mystic, he was also a part-time poet. However, due to his reluctance to present his poetry, we are deprived of much of it. Only some of his verses have been revealed, and those some reveal things that are quite beyond imagination.
استاد چرا شعر گفتید؟
بله برای اینکه جاهی جنبه خیال جلوه می کرد و عرض کنم بیشتر تأثیر داشت. ما هم یه چند تا بیت شعر کسی رم نیست، یه چند تا بیت تهیه کردیم به نام شعر.
همین گویم و گفتم بارها، بود کیش من مهر دلدارها. پرستش به مستیست در کیش مهر، برونن زین جرگه هوشیارها. به شادی و آسایش و خواب و خر، ندارند کاری دل افگارها. کشیدند در کوی دلداده گون، میان دل و کام دیوارها. چه فرهادها کشته در کوهها، جهلاجها رفته بردارها.
Allamah deprived this world of his blessed fragrance in November 1981. But for the lovers on the path of the beloved, he never left.
به سرچشمه خورشید نه خوب بردم راه، ذره بودم و مهر تو مرا بالا برد. من خسی بی سر و پایم که به سیل افتادم، او که میرفت مرا هم به دل دریا بود. چند تای دیگری داره.